Welcome, everyone. Welcome to yoga. Apologies for the late MailChimp, but Luke, who does all of that and films, has been ill with conjunctivitis. He's better now. That's why we're on camera. So thanks, Luke. And sorry for the late MailChimp. But the link is always the same. It doesn't change. The link to the video class, some people asked me, is different from the link to all the classes that are archived on this particular link. So you can't go to those classes from the present class link. You have to, there's another link further down in the mail. And yeah, so we're back after the summer. And so last time we were talking about the main themes. We're going to pick up the big themes of learning to track and to listen to the way your weight moves in your body and moves you and is moved by the world, and how that then opens up, it seems to me, an idea-centered or idealistic way of moving and of opening to movement. The weight puts us in touch with the way we're breathing, and it puts us in touch with what we've been calling nearness, which is more about participating embodiedly in a world rather than looking at yourself, looking and correcting, performing, more participating. And then that takes us into the big movements of the body. And we're looking at the standing poses, which really highlight the separation of lower spine, pelvis, and legs, which is the rooting, from above the belly button. So chest, shoulders, arms, head, and neck, which is the branching. So the body makes an amazing separation in the spine. Vanda wrote about it beautifully in her book, Awakening the Spine. She had this intuition, but it's a big part of movement research these days. So yeah, so we're going to be looking at front bending and back bending of the spine in the themes that we've mainly been looking at and which we touched on last week. And then we're going to dig further into the standing poses. So let's just start standing today rather than lying down. We'll lie down in a moment. So just come up to standing. If you get dizzy or wobbly, you can stand near a wall or near your sofa. Yeah, so just standing and opening to the space, which means see people, you know, so you don't glaze over. But this thing that we do all the time, which is we are sensing ourselves all the time, and we're sensing others and the world. We're judging how loud to speak or how fast to move, or if we're being heard and understood. Yeah. So standing in a world, there is a world around you. Yeah. Don't change anything, but just notice, how is your sense of weight? Don't change anything. Yeah. Look out your window, look at the other person in the room if you're practicing with someone. And then just go for a little walk. Again, very normal. So you walk towards something, maybe something you were doing before yoga, and then you look out the window and you feel the carpet or the wooden floor. You notice how your clothes move on your body, how parts swing. That's right. And we stop and we start. That's what we're doing all the time as we get vertical and unvertical. We don't only look down. Yeah. We stop, we start. So don't change anything of this ordinariness. But again, ask yourself, how is the sense of my weight? Do I feel weightless? Because you might. Some people say, you know, it's amazing when I move, I don't register weight. I feel something else. Or you might feel very heavy on one side or in one leg or more in the back. Stopping, starting, Just sensing the weight. And when you stop, come back to that. What's it like when I stop? And how do I pick that up? Where is it? Is it in my one leg, more in the front, more in the back? Yeah. Don't think about it. Just receiving impressions. It's really like receiving your body, because at an embodied level, we're much more resonant beings than, logical thinking beings. That's something that comes on top of. Great. Okay, and when you want to, then you can come back to your mat, or you can just stay where you are. It's really up to you. Yeah. So there is a sense of weightedness. And if we don't start from here, or this isn't a major part of the vocabulary we're playing with, then being grounded becomes an ideal, actually a judgment. You're not grounded, you're too grounded, you're stuck in the mud, all of that. But actually, being grounded is a very open-ended and very beautiful thing about what human beings generally do, which is they don't fly away. We're on the ground. And it's very profound to be like that we are like that. So we're back, just noticing. Noticing what has shifted now that you've been noticing for a while. Great. So we're just going to close the eyes. That's the only change we're going to make. If that makes you dizzy or worried that you'll fall over, you can hold on something, or don't close them completely. But we're just going to close the eyes. And just notice, how is that different in terms of listening to the weightedness of you? We are weighted beings in a world. And we have a long history of our weight. In fact, we begin as a weight which is carried and contained by the mother. In some languages, to be pregnant is to be grave, to be really heavy, to be in gravity. And then the eyes open and you look around and just take a moment with the outside world and then close again. One is not better than the other. But when we play like this, we prevent this thing that can happen in classes and movement work, where we have to slow down and we have to close the eyes and we have to lie down in order to know anything, which isn't really true. And open again. Yeah. Okay. So there is a fluctuating world of this thing which we call our heaviness. Take your right hand and put it on your chest. And just notice how the weight shifts, if you can sense how that is. Take your other hand and just put it on the small of your back. Just easy. So you're touching the front and the back. The front and the back. And just notice what happens. And let the eyes close. And notice what that's like. So we're going to make a small, easy movement, which is with this gesture, this containing hand on the front and containing hand on the back, with the eyes closed if it doesn't feel too uncomfortable, or you can open them. We're just going to let the head come down a little. So the neck bends. Don't force anything, but we're just going to let the head go forward a little, sensing in through the breath. So if you don't have any discomfort, you can let the head go quite far, but don't force it. And there's no good distance that you have to go. And just notice how the body responds to that. Things release, things relax, things get tight. But it's as if the head has released itself onto the front of you, onto your chest. And you may feel a response all the way down to your back, to the hand that's on your lower back. Then the head starts to come back up. And then it's at some point, it's on top. And then it starts to go back. Just letting the back of the neck relax now as the head goes back. And just let the back of the neck, the head and the neck sort of lean against each other. And just notice what happens to the front and the back of you in the sense of weight. And coming back to some kind of middle place. Okay, and then the head goes forward, don't force anything. And we're going to keep going. So now the whole upper back starts to bend. And as it does, allow your knees to bend so that you make this softening bend forward. And as you go down, you can release your hands and rest your elbows on your thighs near your knees, maybe. So you're bending and resting. And this is a great moment to ask yourself, am I really in my weight or am I doing a shape? So you should feel your upper body resting on your thighs. Yeah, and you've bended the knees, which allows the tail to drop and the spine to make quite a deep front bend without you struggling or stressing. Right. And then in your own way, you can walk up your thighs if you want. We're going to uncurl and make our way up. Yeah. Nice. Okay, that was very deep, and no idea of, you know, bending and having to touch toes and looking at shapes. It was very beautiful. So we'll do the same backwards. It's more complicated, but actually less dangerous for the spine. So we can put the hand here and here, so we sense the torso moving. We let the head start to go back. Don't rush into, like, I know what's going to happen. And then there's a moment where you could keep going. Just let your legs bend a little at the knees, and then just allow yourself to play with the back bending of the spine. And if you want to, you can drop your arms, or you can rest both hands against the small of your back and just bend, bend. Legs are bent, probably. Let's do it with knees slightly bent. Yeah. Has a different feeling. Don't try to go anywhere special. Just, yes, yeah, and coming back, coming back. Yeah, so we're just going to roll forward. Don't rush into, because I know what I'm doing now. We're going to roll forward to where we were before. And this time, really take a moment down here to let the feet grow, so the heels and the toes are, you can kind of move around. So the foot is nice and open and it's not grasping. And the knees are bent and the tail is heavy and you're really resting on your thighs. And now we're going to come up, and this time we're going to let the legs straighten and we're going to let the arms go up. Arms go up, And then it's as if the arms and the hands and the skin lift the chest, and the chest takes the middle of your torso, and the whole thing is going up and back, and huge feet and roots and going. Play with that. Don't look at yourself in a shape. So you're not worrying about right or wrong. You're just opening. You know, a wonderful place is to ask, are my armpits breathing as I bend backwards? Yeah. Opening, 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 opening. Wow, okay. Up and then coming back. Yeah, of course. Coming back. Yeah. Yeah. So just watch me for a moment. What was beautiful is that normally if we're making the shape and we think I have to touch my toes, what happens is I just focus on the toes. So most of the bend happens here. And lots of pieces don't participate. Or likewise, I just have to do a back bend. So I do like this. And it'll be slightly different on each of us, but one area will be the focus of the bend. But actually what I saw both times, but for example, when we go back, so we have the arms, you see, as the arms come up, it's not just this, the arms continue to unfold something. And then as we go back, do you see each part is allowing the next part to do something. So you're not making some extreme movement in one place. So here we go again. We're not looking at the shapes, just the heavy head. You can put your hand back on your heart. And so all the tissue of the body, all the weight is starting to talk to each other, and you're not doing something that your eyes have seen somewhere else. That's it. And you have no idea about I should do more or I should do less. That's it. And you keep rolling down. You're not watching yourself. And at some point, the knees are bent and you've really rested onto your elbows. And if you want to go further, you're welcome. You can then slide off your elbows and your knuckles land on the floor. So if you've had a lower back worry, then you probably already know you don't want to do this, or you know how to judge how much to do. But the legs are bent. And then we walk back up the legs. You can use your hands if you want. Yeah, or you can slide up. It's really up to you. And then as you start to straighten up, just slide your fingers up your trunk. It's a way of reminding yourself that as you open towards the back bend, all of these ribs and the breastbone and the heart and the throat, it all has to participate. And you can even now play with bending and straightening the legs. One little secret is if you widen your arms too much, the upper ribs don't participate so much anymore. The shoulders take over. If you bring your arms together, as you open into the back bending, the whole spine is participating. It's early in the class, so don't force. Yeah, don't force. Can I put my hand here? So you just want to go up more and back more. Yeah. Yeah. And less with the head. Yeah, do you see? Look, more, there's a bigger up and a bigger around. That's beautiful. Yeah, whereas if you really drop the head hard, it forces this. Yeah, keep breathing. Keep breathing. You feel? So there's variations, but you could play with being much more up here. How's that? Yeah. Yeah. Don't stay too long, because if you can't come back, would create problems. Wonderful. And then we'll just let that ease out just by swinging. Yeah, swinging. So twisting always brings dialogue. between front and back, front bending and back bending. So just very nice. Okay, so you can do this in the shower while the kettle's boiling or the pasta water is boiling. And it's a wonderful reminder, because this is such a deep movement. It's a wonderful reminder of what you're really doing, which is not making shapes. So we're just going to let the right arm go up. And you can start by actually being in the right foot so that your weight is on this right side and you're really growing down into the right leg and up into the right arm. Yeah. And you can wave a little front and back like you're a tree waving in the wind. Just move the spine. Keep rooting through the foot. Keep opening up through the armpit and arm. Yeah. Now we're going to side bend, and you have the option to play with, watch my hands, this side opening or this side closing, or both. So play with that. It's quite different if you focus on squeezing the shortening side or opening the lengthening side or having both. Yeah. And then you can play with the weight going onto the left foot or staying on the right foot or flowing between the feet. And we come back, and as the arm comes down, the other one goes up, and you really put yourself on your left foot. Eyes could be open or closed. Yeah, so you may start to learn about your pattern. You can see that my pattern is to do like this, like also Sini, for example. There's a tendency to be quick to lift on the front, but another person may be more that way. So it's nice, once you know your pattern, then you can say, oh, I'm going more into my pattern, which I can feel, or it would be quite nice to do slightly the opposite. So you can play, yeah, you can play. But I'm on my left foot, I'm lengthening my left arm, and now I'm going to open. I'm going to stay on my left foot. I'm going to either open my left side or let my right side close, or both. I can do it more actively or more passively. Open. It'll feel different from the other side because we are very, very different because we're mostly spiraling. Opening, opening, opening. Great. And then you can let your weight come onto the right side, which changes things a bit. And coming back. Yeah, and then go for a little walk and just see what's changing and how the weight feels and the breath. And stopping and starting, all those things that help us to notice. It's not an intense, concentrated grasping at cosmic information, it's just noticing. Okay, very good. Very good. So let's come back to our mats. So we've done this many times from different places. Yeah. And so we're going to do very similar, but completely different. We're going to be on our hands and knees. And we're just going to let the spine float up. And again, it could be because something's happening along the front, or something's lifting you or exciting the skin of your back and the back. And your tail is hanging down and your head is hanging down. And you keep floating up into this front bending arch. And as you go deeper and deeper into the movement, you can, use more muscles if you want. You can play with squeezing your tummy or squeezing your buttocks so that you go further and further. And then we start to go the other way. We let everything start to hang down. We let everything start to open up on the front and bend on the back. And the head comes up and the tail comes up as far as you can. Sometimes I can go a bit further if I release my elbows all the way up. And then again, you can use the erector muscles of your back to add a bit of squeeze at the end, just to feel what that's like. Really letting go around the belly button, and then coming back to some middle place. Some middle place. Wonderful. We're going to let the elbows come down. Yeah. So just one thing, Kate. Yeah, just put it back just for a second. Just think about, and put your hands. So the thing about the blanket is actually to alleviate the angle. There could be more like that, you see. And if it's slidey, you can do it like this. So you're trying to make it less, that's it. Whereas there, do you feel? Yeah. And then I don't know, this may be a bit squishy, but yeah. Okay, so we're down on our elbows. Significantly different position. We're on our knees and elbows with our lower legs and forearms growing out on the floor. And just let all of the chest and heart and lung stuff hang between your shoulders. Let it hang down. Just let go and just rocking from side to side. So you're letting your shoulders be oily, and you're letting everything that is rib cage and visceral organy stuff in there, you're letting it all hang down as you move between your shoulders. Yeah, don't be too deliberate and considered, just kind of movey, oily. Okay, curl your toes under. Yeah, then you can play without the toes, but curling the toes gives you lots of information and helps you to start to realize what your pelvic floor is doing. And we're just going to lean back into the sit bones. So your thighs are no longer perpendicular to the ground. You're kind of leaning back into your sit bones, and you should feel that your pelvic floor is widening as you lean back and your forehead goes towards the floor. So just let yourself into that. Toes are there giving you presence and support. Sit bones are leaning back and widening, resting into the back of the pelvic floor. And then without changing any pelvis and leg things, you can bring the arms a bit forward so your spine lengthens out from the tailbone, which is flying in the air, your squirrel's tail. Your spine is hanging down, and you can just play with how long you want to get. Don't go all the way back into child pose, and don't come all the way up so that your thighs are perpendicular to the floor. You should be leaning back a bit, but not so back that you lose your squirrel's tail. You definitely should have a bottoms up feeling. Wonderful. Then we walk back, we uncurl the feet. And then there is this moment where you can really feel your pelvis going down. Go all the way back with your arms, and then of course you're in child pose. And just clock that. Just notice what's happened to the spine, what it feels like on the front, what it feels across your back. Yeah, just enjoy taking that in for a minute. Just have a rest. You can put your head on your wrists if you want. Very often in yoga, we see that there is a, a dialogue between poses that fold you onto yourself and poses that lengthen and open up. It's not all about stretching. It's much more intelligent and osteopathic than we think. Because very often the deepest releases in the body are not when you traction, when you pull things away from each other. They happen when you really bring things towards each other. And what Vanda used to call gathering, where you kind of are gathering the tissue. You're bringing, like here, you're lying forward. So all the rich, intelligent layers of your visceral organs are all being pushed against each other, which actually frees a lot of things up. Frees a lot of things up. So you're resting. Okay, but if from this child position, we started to walk forward arm by arm, there would be a moment once you've gone the length of the tissue that you can, there's a moment where the pelvis, if you keep inching forward with your hands, the pelvis starts to come up. So just notice that the pelvis is coming up, but the tail is still down, but now my tail is starting to tip up. So notice that. And it's about here that I could actually even start to tuck my toes under. And that amplifies the sense of the sit bones pointing up and away from each other. For me, this is the beginning of knowing how to heal your back. Knowing what's happening here. Knowing that the lumbars can move richly. Knowing that the tail is not glued into your pelvis, but it has its own life. The sacrum is not one big blob with your two pelvic bones. It makes a third bone. It's part of a triangle, and it has its own rich life, even if the movements are tiny. So now, by now, as you come forward, you should feel, wow, my tail is really sticking up. Yeah. And my sit bones are wide, and we're not going that far forward yet. Okay, just yeah. So your sit bones are still leaning back a bit. Okay, that looks fine, everyone. And you can see here the sit bones are up, and the spine is hanging through. Yeah. And this is very, very profound as child pose. Except that we rarely give the front of the spine a chance to lengthen passively like this without us pulling them. And that's what you're doing, you know. You're letting yourself drop through. Of course, if your shoulders bother you, one, you can widen your arms a bit. Or if it's very bad, you can tuck them under your chest, or you can do this in standing. Beautiful. So we've done this hundreds of times. Yeah. And remember, you're participating in something. You're not performing. And performing just means, did I win or was I the best? But participating means really, wow, what am I learning and what's changing? So what you want to discover over time is where the spine could move more, around here and around here, right? And other places where it feels like, wow, this is moving so much, maybe even too much, because where some place moves too much, another place moves less. So not too much, but more and less. It's not about better or worse. but sometimes things do move so little or so much that we have pain there. It's beautiful. And then coming back, coming back. Coming back. Yeah, so just have a moment. Yeah. Just if you're comfortable on your knees, stay. If you're not comfortable, sit or stand up just for a moment. But if you're comfortable, otherwise adjust by standing. Just put your hand on your chest for a moment and just watch me. Just feel, come back to this very gentle possibility to fold forward. Very gentle and small possibility to fold back. And just notice where you do it. Don't worry about right or wrong, just notice. Back and forward. You can put your other hand on your lower back. Don't do the breathing, but you might notice that the breathing can go with you or opposing you. Both are wonderful. So just notice. So you become like a piece of algae in the water, just flowing back and forward, noticing the breath. It's not just a neck movement, it's the whole spine is liquid. In fact, your spine is a river. It's not a stick. It never was a stick. It's never going to be a stick. If you're French, it's not even going to be a baguette. It's not possible. Not possible at all. It's a river. It's constantly undulating. It has many layers, like rivers have different currents in them, hotter at the top where the sun is and colder at the bottom. Different fish swimming at different levels and frogs. That's it. Yeah. So we are quite liquid and we have this memory of this. You know, we're not just bones stuck in the mud. We're much more liquidy and resonanty than we remember because we're always in our eyes and in language, which can be quite pokey. Great. Okay, so we're going to come back. Yeah. And when you're ready, we're just going to stand up. Okay, so the yoga poses begin with standing because that's what we do all the day long. And so if you just come back to this first thing we did, which is standing on your own 2 feet, and don't over-organize, doesn't even matter if you're not pointing straight ahead on your mat, but just soften your gaze a bit and sense the weight and just notice, what is it like? More on the right, more on the left, more front, more diagonal, whatever comes to you, yeah. And then just let your awareness, but your weight go into your feet and imagine, open an imaginary playful process of imagining that the feet are opening. They're not, it's not a grasping moment, like the earth is moving and I have to grasp. No, it's the opposite. I'm safe and I have lots of time. So my feet are actually opening like a mouth about to go over a lovely piece of chocolate or whatever it is. Yeah, so your feet are opening. That said, many of us don't realize that we're grasping all day long. We're doing lots of other things with our feet. But actually your toes and your heels are opening away from each other. Opening away from each other and sideways. My movements are not necessarily yours, but it's a foot. The foot is like a mouth and the ground is delicious, or the foot has an eye in it and it's looking at the ground and the ground is loving it back. So there is something in the foot that is opening front to back, side to side. Wonderful. Great, and then we let the weight go onto the right side. Yeah, it's just a little bit, so I can put my weight anywhere I want, the right side. That's how a tango dance begins. And really long, natural walking that we do when we remember that we're not wearing a backpack and stuck in a city. Walking really begins by a shift of weight, not by a lifting of something. Lifting of something is marching and flexing and controlling. But we shift the weight. So if you shift to the other side, yeah, and you'll notice that your body rotates a bit, accommodates to that shift. Yeah. So I'm going to go onto my right leg and I'm going to let my left leg come up a little. So I'm bending at the knee and I'm releasing in the hip. Yeah, and then I go to the other one. So you don't need to think of picking. So it's a kind of sexy rumba. The beginning, yeah, it's the beginning of a rumba thingy. Yeah, yeah. And you notice that your hip will start to swivel a bit. Yeah. And you'll notice that the ankle you're standing on also starts to tip a bit. So you can let that. You can let all of that happen. And then we do this with the arm. So I'm acknowledging a very deep reality in my body when I'm all with my weight on one leg. I'm staying on my right leg. And I'm letting my spine swivel. I'm making it happen a bit because look at my hand. I'm letting my lower ankle down here. I'm letting it rock. I'm letting it rock. Yeah. If that's a new concept, just take your time to let that in. We're letting the foot roll to the instep, roll to the outstep. Yeah. So in movement terms, it's called eversion and inversion. It used to be called supination and pronation. Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at my foot, you see my foot is actually rocking. It's what the lower ankle allows us to do. The lower ankle is made by the talus bone sitting on the calcaneum, while the upper angle is this right angle here. That's the upper. So it's this. Yeah. Yeah. Great. And we come to the other side. If you take the lower ankle away, the movement stops being sensual and you end up having ballroom dancing. If you let the lower ankle make you do this swivelly thing, you start to have the Latin dances. Yeah. The pelvis moves, the spine moves. It's very beautiful. Okay, come back to both feet. So here we are. I'm going to be on my right foot. I'm going to be on my left foot, so it's easier to see, also for the camera. I'm going to be on my left foot. I don't care what my ankle does. And I'm going to soften in my right hip as my knee comes up. Yeah. So as my knee comes up and I get hold of it, I'm really softening in my hip. Yeah, my other knee can be a little bit bent if I want, and I bring it up. Yeah. That's it. And then I drop and I change weight onto the right. So I shift my weight. I don't make a shape, and it's playful and wobbly. I soften around the hip and I let the knee come up. And if you lose your balance, it's great. And I can play with bringing it more up. And then I drop. Very nice. Yeah. Then I go back to the first one. I soften. The knee is flying up. Yeah. And then just play with turning your leg this way. Just play with that thing we do when we sit cross-legged. And, you know, losing the balance is a wonderful moment to just get all wobbly. Yeah, so that's it. And when you're here, well, let's do the other side. So I drop, I'm not shaping, I just let the weight come onto my right leg. I soften, I stabilize, the knee comes up. So there's a deep movement in my left hip. And then I just start to play with this external rotation of my upper leg. Yeah, doesn't matter, your knee could be higher or lower. But now we're gonna play, and then we'll go back to the first leg. Once I start to externally rotate, I can play with dropping my knee a bit, or a lot, and lifting my knee a bit, or a lot. Yeah, and smiling. Yeah, if I go back to my other leg, I soften in the hip, the leg comes up. Yeah, so then I add this rotation, and I can play with, these are variations of tree pose. I can Vrksasana. I can drop. You'll notice the more you drop, the more it makes your lower back curve, like in fish pose. Just let that. Or I can lift, still externally rotated, but I lift. Yeah, and you can also lift the foot, so you can lift the whole rotated thing and move it around. Yeah, very nice. Breathe. Nice. Breathe. Very nice. And then you can do tree pose. There we go, kids doing tree pose. Initiate with the weight. So instead of the shape, here we're going to do tree pose, shape, tension. Put the weight. Notice how the body through the weight is talking to you. And then you have roots and branches, and open your gaze to the highlands. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So balancing is about falling. It's about rocking. In fact, we do that all the time when we stand. We're always rocking and falling, gathering again and falling. Great. Okay. So we looked at triangle poses. I was going to move more quickly into the warrior poses and things, but we will another time. And what we did was, instead of standing on the mat, we had one foot on the mat and one off. So the line of the mat helps you to know that in the early poses where you're not making such a big step, you don't want to, unless you're doing it on purpose, you don't want to step in front of the back foot. You just want it to go in front of where it was, so you can see. Your weight has stayed on the back foot. And from your feet all the way up to your belly button, you are one triangle. You're really like an Italian caffettiera, Italian coffee pot. You have the bottom bit where you put the water, and then you have the middle bit where you put the espresso. This is the middle bit, okay? And then you have the upper bit, which opens like that. So you have the lower triangle, and then the upper triangle. And then you turn it, and that's how you get your coffee when you put it on the fire. So this is going to stay stable. And this part, so put your hands on your ribs, this part is going to turn, but not your pelvis. It can turn a bit, but watch, if I turn my pelvis, I haven't closed the coffee pot because everything just moved. So my feet to pelvis to belly button is stable. And my ribs to elbows to head are turning. And I can turn towards the back leg, which is normal triangle pose, Trikonasana. Or I can turn towards my front leg, which is reverse triangle pose. Parivrita Trikonasana. And I go again. And now, remember last time, and we've talked about this before, the way to have a very deep triangle pose, watch me, is not to sit on yourself, upper body on lower body. That's why we lift the arms. That's what they're doing here. But actually to lift the upper body gently up and off. So the lumbars have room to rotate, because lumbars are not really made for such deep rotation as the neck bones are. Yeah. So there is a lift. And in fact, if we put our arms out, we feel that lift. That's what the arms are for. That's it. Beautiful. Rotate towards the back leg. Rotate and enjoy. You can even speed it up. You can swing your arms, but you're rotating from the belly button up where the espresso is. Yes. Yes. And you try, like, that's it. You try, John, to involve your shoulders. You try to have the middle ribs participating. Yeah, you have a little more presence here. Yeah, and you want to really open up here. Yeah. Yeah. And let's just make a huh sound. Huh, 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 huh. That's how the Valderra song was born. It was born in India doing yoga. Great, great. And then look, step forward, and we're on the other side. So we have the other leg. We put our hands on our hips, and we turn. We turn. Yeah. For every hour you're on your mobile phone, the Yoga Sutras say, because they talk about mobile phones, you should have 144 hours in triangle pose or reverse triangle pose. It's the only way to prevent not falling into the World Wide Web and to participate in world peace. So just take that in. Yeah, and then we could do it now with the arms. Yeah. Take it in and open, yeah, and huh, huge back heel, flying arm, voice, that was great, Henriette. So the front is opening. Yes, yes, it's possible in Finland, in Holland, in England, in Scotland, and in Italy. Perfectly possible. Perfectly possible. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So there are many, many variations of stepping forward and or bending the leg, and we'll pick that up. But there is a moment where you decide not to be on the back foot, which is the domain of all the triangle variations and some warrior poses. But you really decide to bring your weight to the front foot. So that's what we're going to do. Use the mat so you know where you are. Take a bigger step. The weight comes to the front foot. The back heel comes off. And make a long line from the back heel up through your whole body. And then tip at the hips. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. This is supposedly a warrior pose, but I think the secret teaching is that it's the teapot pose, actually. Yeah. Nice, nice. So remember we said yesterday, when you go forward, even though the accent looks like it's here, look where my hand is. So because we are flexing, but you don't need to flex. So actually imagine that you're opening. So actually, even though the shape is closing, you are opening. Yeah. Yeah. So you're going down, but you're beautiful, but you're actually going up, which is how St. John of the Cross did his yoga. And he wrote about it in his poems when he talked about the via negativa. So you're kind of going, that's great, Kate and John. You're going away from where you're going. Let's do on the other side. We step forward. We put the weight on the front leg. The foot is not grasping. The lower ankle may wobble. And I'm opening. You can even touch into your hip joint and open as you go down. Open as you go down, or as your foot goes up. That's great. That's great. Open. Yeah, great. And then we're going to turn into the half moon pose. So we're going to, everything is the same. Go on the first side. We step, we root, we're growing, we're aware our skin is alive. We're closing, but we're opening. And then we can tip one way and the other way. We can tip and open. Don't close in the armpit. Keep opening. Great, great, great. The lower arm can go away from the foot. Yeah, that's great. Great, Henriette. Yeah, and the back, Kate, the back arm, watch me. Just if it rotates this way, you'll be stuck. So just open. You want to open it? Yes. Open. Yeah. Yeah. And we haven't done this before, and it's a bit tricky on the lower back, so don't force it. But you know, as you go forward and you open this way, which is wonderful for the back, you can, hang on, I lost my foot. You can also go the other way, which is a little tricky on the sacrum, so don't force it, but play with like an airplane banking to the left and the right. Open up though, John, open your chest. Yes. Don't worry about the direction. Go in one direction, yeah. Go in one direction and then play with the other one. You take a step on the other side, very long from heel, opening, then you tip one way, so you have moon pose, and then you can tip the other way and you have reverse moon pose. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Just do the first thing and don't worry about the second part, because I was watching you. Just go and open, because that comes quite naturally. Open up here. Yeah, this way. Yeah, got it? Now, wait until you open more. Lengthen the leg a bit. Yes. That's it. Okay. Okay, and we're just going to close in 1 minute. If you come down to your knees. Yeah. And then come down to your elbows. Drop your belly, drop your chest, let your tail go up. And now, watch, I don't know, you can figure out how you want to do it, but slide through. So you've got your chest on the floor. So your arms, toes, chest, and chin are on the floor, but your pelvis is not. Yeah, a bit like an earthworm. This is wonderful for the lower back and the neck. And then come all the way through so you're flat. Yeah. And the head is on the floor. Okay, relax completely on the front of the groins. So you feel your belly really melting into the floor. You drop the pudding on the floor and it's splat on the floor, the belly. The belly. Now, play with this. Let the knees go down and let the tail come up. This is a very good thing to do in bed because the bed is softer. So you'll have more leeway. So the tail comes up, the knees go down. This is wonderful if your lower back is tricky. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then there's a moment where you can curl the toes under. Keep going. So now you're quite high up onto the breastbone and on the knees. Try to be going up while you really relax the lowest lumbers towards the floor. And let go. And just roll over onto your back. And just let go, just let go, just let go. Yeah. So we're just after the 1:45 mark. So we're closing the class here, and we're going to head off and meditate in 15 minutes. If you want to join us, we won't be online, of course, but if you want to meditate 15 minutes, we will be too. And I'm just double checking, but I think there's no class next week. I'm just checking because we have a governance meeting. That's correct. So on the 5th of October, which is next Tuesday, there is no class, but we will pick up the following Tuesday, which is the 12th. And if you're on my database, you'll get a message. If you're on the WCCM one, you'll get a message. So there's no class next Tuesday, the 5th of October. So have a lovely rest of the week. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of you. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.